I'm up. I'm up.
Yo, Big,
I'm up, man.
like 504,
All right, 7:30. I'm gonna meet you at the airport.
California.
Yeah.
And welcome back to My Music's podcast. Today we have a special guest, Madyson Wiley from Mad Beats blog. And today we're going to be talking about Biggie Smalls. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you guys doing today? I hope you're doing great.
Oh, we're doing great. We're excited to hear about Biggie Smalls.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's definitely going to be a great topic to speak about, especially with everything going on in the world today with the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement. It's going to be really interesting to touch on these topics and his life in general.
So what made you choose Biggie?
So I chose Biggie because this summer I actually fell in love with the song Going Back to Cali. I know that sounds so interesting,
good one.
but in his Life After Death album, I started listening to the Going Back to Cali song and Hypnotize, and my dad had always raised me by listening to Biggie, and so there is some nostalgia there, and I really wanted to look more into the Tupac and Biggie feud, along with Biggie's impact on West and East Coast rap, along with how he characterized himself in the rap scene.
Yeah, he definitely stood out as a unique individual. Will go down in history as probably one of the best rappers of all time. So let's start out early, his childhood. You know, what are some fundamental things from there that help shape who he is as a person?
Sure. So he was born with the name Christopher Wallace. Okay, so he was born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1972. So both of his parents are from Jamaica. His mom was a teacher and his dad was a welder and a politician. But his dad actually left the family when Christopher was 2, and his mom worked 2 jobs just to send him to private school. And it's so interesting because he actually went to the same high school as rappers like DMX, Jay-Z, and Busta Rhymes.
So what I'm hearing is we got a rap high school forming up in the East Coast here.
Yes, we do.
All right.
So, ironically, he was given the name Big when he was a child because he was always more a heavier set guy. So he had begun drug dealing when he was 12 because his mom was unaware due to working long hours.
That's pretty early to start.
Yeah, so you are familiar with, being a criminal justice major, that starting at 12 is very early, and he kept up with drug dealing at 17. He was in trouble with the law and received a 5-year sentence in 1989. So this was on and off, and this was in multiple states too. So he had started rapping as a teenager. He was just trying to entertain people in his neighborhood. He was just trying to lighten the vibe, you could say. Give someone a smile on their face. After he got out of jail the first time, he made a mixtape for his debut as Biggie Smalls. He had no really serious plans of a music career. It was just it was so fun for him just hearing himself over the beats. It was a way for him to let go. Because we all got shit that we need to let go.
For sure.
Yeah, so the mixtape was soon found by the press, and it was profiled in an unsigned artist column. Soon after that, he was invited to record with many other rappers. So an important character that I'm going to name is Sean Puffy Combs. He was a very important person in Biggie's life. He worked for Uptown Records and arranged a record deal for Biggie. Combs then left Uptown Records and created Bad Boy Records, which Biggie joined. In August 1992, he had changed his name to the Notorious B.I.G.
There we go. That's everybody knows him as.
Yep, because there was a lawsuit. Because Biggie Smalls is actually from a movie, and so the lawsuit, because he got so famous, they did not like that because it was actually a character from a movie.
Well, that's quite interesting. I was unaware of that. No, very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, honestly. So about a year later, about in 1993, he released his first single as a solo artist, Party and Bullshit.
All right, yeah, there we go.
A way to set it off. So this is the interesting part to me that I want to touch on too, moving a little bit away from his childhood. Was Tupac and Biggie were actually acquaintances in the beginning of their rap career.
I was going to say, if you talk about Biggie Smalls, Tupac generally comes not far
Yes,
after.
of course. So they first met at a party in LA, And mind you, Biggie didn't spend a lot of time in LA. He's from Brooklyn. He loves the East Coast. You can even talk about it in his songs. He goes to Cali to escape, to smoke, to drink, to just party. Okay?
For the weed and the women.
Exactly. So, you know, Tupac was almost like it was almost like a role model for Biggie. So Tupac was already successful at the time, and Biggie had asked Tupac to be his manager, but Tupac had actually refused. This fizzled out because Tupac came to a record recording to record with Biggie, and actually was attempted to be shot in the lobby. So Tupac thought that it was Biggie who planned it, because Biggie had invited him to that record recording.
And so, in your opinion, you think this is truly the beginning of the rivalry that everybody knows? Okay.
Yes, that is when Tupac made his diss track, okay? And he fueled more of the arguments than Biggie. Biggie didn't want to. He never recorded a diss track against Tupac. He actually told after Tupac died that he wasn't trying to start anything, and he feels like the media made it worse between them. So that is why, and now they think that maybe Tupac and Biggie's deaths were caused by the same people or person. So it's very interesting seeing how, Tupac and Biggie's feud was due to the beliefs that Biggie attempted to kill Tupac.
Right. Now, kind of looking at Biggie's music itself,
sure.
You know, he's got his own niche per se, but other artists influenced at the time: Tupac, N.W.A., Eazy-E, Ice Cube. How would you say other artists like N.W.A. specifically would influence Biggie Smalls?
So I feel like it's very interesting that you say that, Calvin, because as you can see in the movie Straight Outta Compton that came out, not too long ago, it's so interesting seeing the culture and the environment in the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s, because we had similar things. We had a lot of police brutality in LA. We had a lot of things going on, in places like, Oakland and, places in California and also in the East Coast in New York. So I feel like the socioeconomic part of being an African American woman or man at this time really influenced NWA and Biggie Smalls. If Biggie had not gotten into drugs at the early age of 12, he wouldn't be where he was. He wouldn't have been who he was, because that influenced him to make 10 Crack Commandments, to make these songs like Ready to Die, to make his first album. It's just, it really is the racial culture that they have. That is really what influenced it, I have to say, between both sides.
And now you touched on a song, Ready to Die, and I think this has always been an interesting part of Biggie Smalls. Ready to Die. It's a song you recorded, but there's more to it. It's actually
an album, I'm
sorry. Yes, an album you recorded, my bad, I misspoke.
You're totally fine.
Ready to Die. Biggie had a little paranoia, didn't he?
Yeah, so that is one of the main things that I want to touch on, and I talk about this a lot in my blog because it's something I kind of see a lot. So as I was reading about Biggie and just kind of studying him for my blog posts, I realized that Biggie has a very, very big fear of dying. And it's so interesting because you could say that he has a higher likelihood of dying than all of us. Because he puts himself, in these positions that, me going to work, I don't worry about maybe getting shot or, whereas he was drug dealing since the age of 12. He has been in the line of fire more than I ever probably will be.
You and me both, yes.
Exactly. So this is kind of what I want to touch on. First album in 1994, Ready to Die. It went gold in 2 months, double platinum in the next year, and then quadruple platinum. Okay? So, Ready to Die shows the resurgence of East Coast rap, and the lyrics are autobiographical in nature. So this is literally an autobiography, how he dealt drugs in the past, and it appealed to listeners' emotions with the struggles he went through with fear of his life ending, okay? So the song, he sleeps with, 3 guns underneath his bed. with his, a pager or phone always by him. I mean, he is ready if anything comes at him. So it's really interesting that not very long after that, his next album is Life After Death. So I just really think that's so interesting because he is such a strong man, and he is literally called Biggie Smalls. In the world, we think of a image of a big man as someone who is strong and, almost unbreakable. But when at the center, he had this fear of dying that was stronger than any other emotion, because that is what got him famous. He profited and he got himself heard by speaking about death in ways that people could not fathom besides in their own brain. Because as you know, our thoughts are so complex and they have so many different ways that Biggie was able to hit the nail on the head by rapping about death. That, music makes you feel, and that's why I call it mad beats. It's because when you're mad, when you're upset, you just want to listen to music, and the beats are what make you stronger, or they can get you a little upset. So that's why I think that death really had a big impact on Biggie, and it really shaped him as a person. Kind of almost like a tragic flaw is his fear of death.
So touching on that tragedy a bit, I mean, not to go all Shakespeare on us here, but tragic hero. Do you think Biggie's a tragic hero in a way?
I feel like there's a chance that he could be kind of like the tragic hero in his own way. Like in his own story, like the tragic hero in his own story. I think that looking back, I think that Biggie would have wanted to write his story a little bit differently. I think that he would want less of the whole idea around Tupac, and he would rather just have more of his kind of fame be
more focused on himself rather than their rivalry.
And the beauty behind his music, and the lyrics behind his music, and just the emotion. I mean, if you listen, and even if you're not a big fan of rap, the way it's you can find out about this man more than you can on any damn website by listening to his music. And I think that's just so interesting. He was this person who created so much for those who had none, and that's including himself. But his tragic flaw that would kill him was his immense fear of death. And this was understood in the lyrics of his songs and his album titles too. So a question that I get asked a lot is, in response to my blog, is how the hell does Biggie influence me, like as a young white privileged woman?
I was gonna say the differences are there, but go
exactly.
Do tell.
So it's so interesting that you say that, because I've always labeled myself as a very I like to observe people. And so to me, the reason why Biggie influenced me a lot is because I want to try to understand, like, culturally and historically what has happened, so I can be better as someone who knows their privilege and acknowledges it. You learn some more about yourself too. And I think it's so interesting the way that you can feel more emotion and almost be able to know what Biggie was going through by listening to his music, and maybe you can be there for people if they're going through something similar.
So music has the ability to bring out emotion in us. We can find something in ourselves. We can see something in other people, and there's obviously more than one perspective when it comes to music writing. Biggie Smalls represents something, a different artist represents another.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I just love cruising to it.
And maybe you just love cruising to it. He doesn't like rolling down the windows to Back to Cali.
Exactly, right? I know, and Hypnotized. Who doesn't like to go freaking zoom into that song?
So, I think we've learned a good amount of Biggie from you today. I think that, you have a lot of good perspectives on his life, his legacy, and his demise in the end. And
Thank you, yeah.
Well.
And I look forward to just check out my blog. There's so much more information. I have songs linked. I have pictures, videos, and I will also share some links to some of my favorite music reviews too from his albums.
This is My Music podcast, and thank you, Mad Beats, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure to check out our blog.
Check it out.
Your lyrics just picture head so hard that your hat can't fit you. Either I'm with you or against you. Format bent you. Back through that maze I sent you.